It is Friday. Thanks for joining us again at Locked On College Football Kickoff Live and making Locked On College Football Kickoff Live your lunchtime listen every single week. That's Kenton Gibb. That's Kenton Gibb. That's Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 here. Kenton, a huge week in college football last weekend. While this weekend doesn't seem to have as many storylines, we've dug up quite a few. And the first, Alabama eliminated. So it turns out there have been some murmurs, some talks here, that this isn't your grandpa's Nick Saban, that Alabama is officially out of college football playoff contention when you look at the rest of their schedule remaining after a home loss to Texas.
Well, I think we talked about this a little bit in pre-production, and we need to bring it back now. Stay off the weed. That team has been eliminated from nothing. It is rare to hear a player say, all of our goals are still in front of us, and know that they're not lying. And that was the case when Alabama players went up for their pressers, not only immediately after the game, but even during this week. Everything is still in front of them because they play the almighty SEC.
Ken, what happens when you have a quarterback that can throw the ball really far and can run the ball, but can't efficiently throw a slant route? What do we do with that?
Well, I think we should ask Josh Heupel as well, because Bazooka Joe. Never mind. Very seriously though, Money Milroe is struggling to make the mundane plays, and I tell people all the time that the extraordinary players just do the ordinary extra well. They do the things that you're supposed to do. They hit the slants, they hit the swings, they hit all of the bubble screens, and on time, on target, in rhythm, and that's what makes them really good. The reality is this for Milroe. This team doesn't need you to be a superstar, a Heisman winner, all that good stuff. How many national championships has Alabama won without a Heisman winning quarterback? You get what I'm saying? Like, the reality is they don't need you to go out there and make all of these exciting plays. The key for him is to master the mundane. If he can do that, Alabama will get everything that they want that's in front of them. I just don't know if he can at this point in time. That's the question. That's what could eliminate them in the future. But as it stands right now, they have every opportunity to get to where they want to get to.
If you're an Alabama fan, I'm going to put our production team on blast for a second. I mean, that was the lead-in, was Alabama eliminated.
Yeah.
But if you look at the rest of their schedule, Kenton, somehow they only have 3 remaining ranked games, and they play in the SEC West. This is a down year for the SEC West. Mississippi State doesn't jump off the page. Arkansas, worse than they needed to be. Texas A&M is a dumpster fire. LSU has already lost by a lot to Florida State. It's LSU, Tennessee, and Ole Miss, the ones that are circled the rest of the way. And guess what? All of those are at home for Alabama. They've still got a real shot to run the table, go 11-1, and get smoked by Georgia in the SEC title game.
Absolutely. And there's a chance they do all those things and beat Georgia in the SEC title game. And then what's the question? What is the conversation that you have? What is the conversation that you have surrounding this team if they run the table and then find a way to beat Georgia in that SEC championship game? And I'm going to toss this back to you, Drake, because this ain't rhetorical now. Do you think that you put that team in the playoff at that point, an 11-1 or 12-1 Alabama team with a win over Georgia?
I think that Antarctica is cold most years, despite the global warming thing is changing some stuff. But yes, Kenton, 12-1 Alabama does make the college football playoff, especially if TCU last year at 12-1, losers of their conference championship, also made the postseason. 100%. And again, this is not the usual tough SEC West schedule. Let's be honest. It might not be your grandpa's Nick Saban. He's going to have to adjust to the NIL and transfer portal, the same as schools like Colorado now have done so well so early on. However, the rest of the SEC West is also kind of behind here. This is not what we're used to in the powerful juggernaut the SEC wants you to think that it is. And at this point, when you look at the rankings, look at the team strength, A&M just got beat by Miami fairly handedly. The Canes controlled that game. And guess what? I don't think Miami is that great. Not good enough to be able to beat an SEC team like that with a half-full stadium. This is not the SEC that we've been sold.
Well, I was told that it just means more. I think it means just as much. I think the SEC means just as much. You know what I mean? And that's about it. But in all seriousness, I agree. This is not a year where you're looking at this team. So often when you talk about coming out of either side of the SEC, there have been years where we're like, you need to be a dominant force. You need to be perfection if you want to make it out of this side of the SEC. Now it's like, I mean, be a good team, beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, and you'll generally get there.
And somebody out there is throwing their phone across the room or punching their computer or they're turning the Bluetooth off in their car because I'm an SEC fan.
They're Big 12 and ACC guys. They don't know no real ball.
They're saying all that stuff. The SEC is the best conference in college football, and it's not close. You can have that every day of the week, twice on Sunday. That's fine. But this is not as good of an SEC as we saw 2-3 years ago, especially when the West is so down. There are only 3 ranked teams in the West right now, Ole Miss, LSU, and Alabama, and one of those already got smoked by a team from the ACC. So let's be honest, the SEC is the best conference in college football. However, it's not as good as it was a year or two ago. Can we at least meet in the middle there, somebody, please?
Well, 2 of those teams actually have already been smoked by ACC teams. You know what I mean? Like, LSU got no mouse. They got tapped out. They say, at least Alabama went down fighting. LSU and Brian Kelly said, hey, listen, we're not interested in being in this game anymore. Y'all got it. We're in Orlando. We're a long way from home. The light's too bright. Pissing down my leg a little bit. That's just what happened there. You know what I mean? Thank God our pants are yellow to disguise it. Looks like sweat. That's what happened with LSU, okay? And so I'm not sure that I can definitively say the SEC is the best conference in football. Now, granted, this could just be because
you don't have to. You don't have to. I will. So continue.
This could be because the SEC was the best by a mile in the past, and that gap has closed from a wide chasm to like, we got to look at this thing one for one. But I mean, in that same regard, you could also say the results so far this season have said, as far as out-of-conference matchups against fellow Power 5 teams, the SEC just ain't it, with all due respect.
Okay, well, with all due respect, you're wrong. The SEC is still the powerhouse conference of college football until it stops winning national championships, which won't happen. Now, I'll give you this, Kenton. It's probably not the deepest conference in college football. The SEC this year only seems to go about 3 to 5 deep. I think there are some leagues that could make a case to go 6 or 7 deep, a la the Pac-12 that has 8 ranked teams and doesn't exist anymore. So Kent, we've been in the show for 8 minutes. I'm already fired up. You know what? Speaking of fired up, Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes is fired up's the word, I guess. He gave his reaction because the Buckeyes have named Kyle McCord their new starting quarterback. Jay, what do you got for us?
But the Buckeyes, 2 games in, 2-0. Kyle McCord started the first 2 games against Indiana, against Youngstown State, and going into week 3, I think this is a great move by Ryan Day. Now, the quarterback battle has gotten a lot of attention here and a lot of attention other places as well because it's important. Who your starting quarterback is pivotal to how successful your team is going to be. Now, we've all looked at also, hey, is this going to be the 2015 season, or is it going to be X, Y, or Z, or is Ohio State going to have to make a move like Nick Saban did in the Natty, pulling Jalen Hurts, putting in Tua, then ultimately going in there and winning the national championship, making that monumental move at halftime of that game. I don't know if that's going to happen or going to be needed to happen, but this isn't 2015. This is not the same situation as Alabama and Tua and Jalen Hurts. This is the Buckeye situation where you have 2 guys at Ohio State who are really good football players. One guy's a little bit more green than the other. The one guy who is not as green as the other, and McCord, has played quite a bit of ball, a little bit of ball over the past couple of years as he's been a Buckeye quarterback at his first start in 2021 against Akron. Stroud did not play. McCord comes in. I believe he threw for over 300 passing yards in that game, just to give you a little thought and a little taste of what McCord did during his first game starting as the quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But this is different than 2021. This is a bigger, different animal. You're going into this season with a quarterback battle that is ultimately over. Now, if the quarterback battle is over, that is not the end of the 2 quarterback system that Ryan Day is possibly going to use. Ryan Day made a comment saying Devin Brown is still going to play. Great. I have made my spill. I've said my things about this very topic. There are numerous games on the Buckeye schedule that 2 quarterbacks should play. Not because of a 2 quarterback system being the best way to win the game, but because the game should be so out of hand, the backup needs to come in to give the starter some rest and the rest of his body, but also to allow the backup to get a little bit of playing time.
All right, two things. The first, I still want Jay Stevens to narrate my life. That is a dude right there.
Absolute unit. Absolute unit.
The second and more important thing, Kenton, what if I told you that big bad Indiana played Ohio State a couple weeks ago, and one Kyle McCord went 20 for 33, 239 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception? I know what you're thinking. Well, he must have run the ball damn well. 2 carries, 8 yards. Congrats, Ohio State. You found your quarterback.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we're not there for the practices every day and all that, and we're not there for the ins and outs of who looks best and all that. But I'll tell you, if McCord continues with this type of play, that's not going to be their quarterback for very long. Like, no. Ryan Day didn't say, so for example, if we look at the NFL, Kyle Shanahan said Brock Purdy would have to melt in practice to not be the starter, right?
Yeah.
Ryan Day didn't say anything along those lines. He said, hey, this is our guy. This is who's going to be our starting quarterback. This is who we're rocking out with. This is who we believe gives us the best chance to win. So with that being said, there's always that asterisk of, even whether the coach says this out loud or not, is like it adds a little respect from me personally. But that asterisk of, and that's what it is for right now. He gives us the best chance to win right now. He didn't want to say that, but that's the reality, right? Like, this isn't a situation where McCord is the guy and there's nothing he can do. Go ahead and have a 3-interception game, brother. See what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, he played fine against Youngstown State. I had a couple stats against Youngstown State as well.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a quarterback in Kyle McCord that doesn't strike fear in college football. Like, it's almost a Beck or a Milroe right now that I look at and I think, still a lot to prove there before I can buy this young quarterback at a powerhouse school. Staying in the Big Ten to Michigan State. Holy cow, this whole Mel Tucker deal is nuts, Kenton. So basically, to unwrap this a bit, so there was a sexual assault survivor and advocate who came to Michigan State campus on an invite from Mel Tucker, the same guy who signed a 10-year contract with the school. Yeah. So she comes there, they strike up a relationship that is strictly platonic, and then there is a lewd phone conversation that he takes on with her, unwarranted, unwanted. So along with this, when all of this breaks out, and he is interviewed by her attorneys, her team, he lies about the whole thing, where he was, what he was doing, the nature of the phone call, and it has come out that objectively Mel Tucker lied about a lot of stuff. And usually what do you do when you're guilty? Kenton, you lie about the little things. The way that I see this, Michigan State was already thinking, oh no, we gave this guy a 10-year deal. Well, this could be bad. The buyout's huge. They were thinking, I mean, wouldn't be the worst if something happened for cause.
Yeah.
And he gave it to them.
Yeah.
Michigan State didn't have to drub this up or dig around. Mel Tucker just said, oh, hey, do you need to fire me? Here, I'm going to do something really bad that, while married, by the way, if you want to add that little nugget in there too. Yeah. And he gave them a reason to say, all right, let's part ways.
So first thing first, to save Locked On's lawyers a lot of headache here. All of this is alleged, right? This is all the information that we have. This is
Very
alleged.
Nice.
We are not saying that we know the facts of this case.
Per USA Today, by the way.
Exactly. Per USA Today.
Yeah.
These are the facts that we're getting secondhand or third-hand with. With that being said, a lot of people are harping on the 27 phone calls all at night and whether or not it was consensual or not. This man had a morality clause in his contract, as most 9-10-figure contracts do. Ladies, gentlemen, non-binary folks, adults, children, and different, anybody listening to this show, if you have a life-changing amount of money on the line, even if you have a day-changing amount of money on the line, do not do anything that can compromise that is absolutely unnecessary. Because even if we say, hey, nothing illegal was done here, there were no laws violated, you still violated the morality clause. That's still an objective fact. That's still... So, this is a black eye on, college football and on Michigan State as a whole, with everything that they've been dealing with so far lately. And I'm going to make one last point and kick it back to you on this one. I've been hearing a lot of, and I hate talking things like this on a sports show because it's supposed to be sports, it's supposed to be fun. Mm-hmm. I hate hearing the talk of, has Mel Tucker ruined it for other black coaches? That's not how this works. That's not how this works, right? Like, we weren't saying that about Rick Pitino, Bobby Petrino.
Urban
we weren't
Meyer,
saying that about Urban.
I was just about to say,
we're not saying this about any other coaches. Mel made a terrible decision for Mel.
Bingo.
Mel made a terrible decision, and he deserves all the vitriol. He deserves all the think pieces. He deserves every bit of criticism, the firing, everything that's coming his way. He deserves all of them. He deserves all of them. But that does not mean that you can use the actions of one man to castigate and denigrate an entire group of coaches that have done well. What has James Franklin done besides lose to Ohio State, Michigan? What has Deion Sanders done so far besides wear hat and shades when he's talking to reporters, which is apparently a thing now? What has Jay Norvell done? You see what I'm saying? Like, there are multiple coaches at the highest level that their reputations are very clean. And so to use this one to paint that light, it's a very nasty narrative that I just don't approve of.
It's a narrative that was unnecessary. Nobody was asking this question, and then people were like, "Oh, let's drum this one up."
Exactly.
And again, what happened in this scenario is something that to me is certainly fireable. And Michigan State, that's where this thing is leading with Mel Tucker. Now, if you're that program that has been in the last 10 years steeped in controversy across multiple different parts of your athletic department, not a good look for Michigan State. That seems to be in a spot right now where, if I'm a coach somewhere else, is that the culture I want to walk into? And I know that's really tough to hear as a Michigan State fan, but this is piled on across the athletic department.
So let's bring this back. Let's bring this thing full circle, because everybody don't realize it's the circle of life and it moves us all. Do you know who the new interim head coach is of this team, or associate interim head coach is of this team?
Is it D'Antoni? They bring D'Antoni back?
D'Antonio, the guy who got kicked out in the first place for allowing some players to get away with some rather salacious things, again, allegedly, because he retired before the investigations concluded. But the coach who, left under some, again, very questionable circumstances is now back. That's how far this thing has gone, and it's a very sad situation that you look at an athletic department that is from top to bottom. You just randomly see all of these stories popping up and piling on one university, to the point where it's getting to the point I wouldn't be surprised if somebody that's like over the university at large steps in and says, all right, we have to run all of the searches for these coaches. We have to institute extra policies for these coaches, because it's just a terrible situation. It really and truly is. And again, you're talking about not a program that is a stranger to controversy. You're talking about years upon years of being in and out of courtrooms for inaction against these types of things. So, of course, Mel Tucker's gone. D'Antonio's back. And D'Antonio's not the head coach now, but who knows where this thing could go. Yeah.
Well, Kenton, let's go back to the fun stuff.
Absolutely. Let's do the fun stuff.
The lighthearted, awesome things that we love about sports. We've got some playoff contenders, contenders that we've talked about the last couple of weeks. This week, we're going to discuss Penn State, that always seems to be overlooked. We have their host, Zach Seiko, to join us here on this show. But first, Kenton, what do you got from LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Well, some folks are already, we talked about athletic directors a little earlier. Some of these athletic directors need to get in on LinkedIn College as well, because I know you're looking for a new hire. But these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wage for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs will help you find the right people for your team faster. Trust me, I am a recruiter when I'm not doing this, and I have hired folks off of LinkedIn Jobs into some of the startups that I've worked for. So I can personally vouch for this product. I've used it myself, and it did not let me down. If you want to get in on this, all you have to do is create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs, then add your job and the purple hiring hashtag frame to your LinkedIn banner to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview. So folks, that is LinkedIn Jobs, to help you find the jobs, help you find the most qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Kenton, after a couple of weeks of college football, it seems that the public has eliminated Alabama and Clemson from contention. So who is still in that picture for now? Let's bring in Locked On Nittany Lions, Zach Seiko. Zach Seiko joining Locked On College Football live today. Zach, it's a Penn State team that, and I just said it, I'll back it up. they seem overlooked every year because the big hump is trying to get over the Big Ten, win a Big Ten championship, and that's what it usually takes to get into the college football playoff. What do you make of this Penn State team, A, being overlooked, and B, that being a bonus to try to make a playoff run?
Yeah, people still view Penn State as this fringe top 10 team, okay? That they're going to go 10-2. They're going to fall to the likes of Ohio State. They're definitely going to lose to Michigan. They'll finish 10-2. They'll go to a bowl game, and who knows if they play an SEC team or a Pac-12, Pac-2, Big 12, whatever. If they play that one, then they're going to win, and then they're going to look good in the spotlight. This is one of the most well-rounded Penn State teams that I've personally seen. Okay, you have the 5-star quarterback. You have a first-round pick at quarterback. You have 2 future first-round picks at running back. You have a franchise left tackle, a future top 10 pick in Olu Fashanu. The defense has a bunch of future first-round picks, whether it's Kalen King, Chop Robinson, Abdul Carter. Penn State is absolutely loaded, and they shouldn't be taken lightly. The gap has closed definitely on Ohio State. Everybody knows about Michigan, so we'll see when that contest rolls around in Beaver Stadium just how close Penn State is to a very good Wolverines team. I'm not going to try to sit here and undermine them, but I know that the gap is closed on the Buckeyes. So Penn State, if things go the way I think they do, they at least go 11-1. The question is, can they go 12-0?
Okay, and you know what? I'm going to tell you this, okay? I'm a Cass Tech guy. You got 2 of them on your roster and the King twins, Yep. Much love to y'all boys. With that being said, in terms of what has helped close that gap on Ohio State and even narrow the gap with Michigan, what has Penn State done to kind of even that playing field out a bit, and what typically people could look at and say, hey, Penn State's going to be great, but they can still pencil in a W. Why can't they this year?
So Penn State has improved mainly because of that capability on the ground. Okay. It starts with the offensive line. I'm a big believer in you win the battle up front in the trenches. Okay. The offensive line is the best that it's been. We've been saying for the past decade, because we know for the reasons that they lost the scholarships and Penn State had to focus its resources towards getting skilled guys as opposed to getting the big guys up front. But now they've really settled in. They brought in an offensive line or coordinator that is he recruits. He's very good at recruiting, and he's built there's tiers to it now. They don't just have starters. They got guys that can back up the backups. And then when you have running backs who, like I said, Nicholas Singleton projects to be like a top 10 pick. Katron Allen's definitely in the first round. It's just a matter of where. Those 2 guys to go along with it. That's why they played right away as true freshmen. So even before we get to Drew Aller, Penn State, 2 seasons ago in 2021, they're playing Illinois. They went to 9 overtimes because they couldn't close out a bad team. Okay. Penn State was throwing bubble screens on 1st and 10 to try to pick up some yardage. That was their ground game because they had a Noah Kane who just didn't recover right away from the ACL surgery. And then Kevon Lee just isn't a top running back. Okay. He's okay. He's decent, but he's not the likes of Singleton and Allen here. So that's why Penn State is able to dictate the pace of the game, win time of possession, and they can go quick. And the offense is finally dynamic. It's balanced. And you have to pick your poison between Drew Aller and then Singleton and Allen in the ground game.
Aller, Singleton, Allen, Lambert Smith. I mean, there are some big names in this Penn State team that I think more people across college football should know. Not saying household, but they should at least know. Do you think any of these guys have a shot at an outside shot at the Heisman Trophy? Because I look at what they do and I think, all right, all these elite teams we're talking about seem to have 1 or 2 Heisman contenders. Who is Penn State's guy? You think, all right, this dude's got a real shot to go to New York if Penn State puts this together?
Aller or Singleton. Say now the discussion for Penn State has been where the explosive runs been. Where are they coming from? When are they going to be here? The wide receivers have let them down in terms of downfield blocking because Nicholas Singleton is that big play player for out of the backfield. Katron Allen, I would say, is a Heisman hopeful, but because Singleton can break off the 80-yard touchdown at any point in time, he's got the speed to do it. I would say that he's the more talented of the 2. It's no disrespect to Katron Allen, but Singleton does have that big playability, and right now he leads the team in rushing touchdowns. For Drew Aller, you got to look at the stat line for Drew Aller. He's been extremely efficient. No turnovers, no interceptions. Granted, it's West Virginia, it's Delaware. Illinois will be the first true test. Then you got a much better defense in terms of Iowa, just right after that in the whiteout. So Drew Aller is really going to get a chance to back up the pedigree and say, okay, it's not just inflated because we're playing teams that are significantly lower than us. You know, I'm as good as advertised. My completion percentage is through the roof. I'm not turning the ball over. I look like a veteran quarterback. And then those passing, he threw for 325 and 3 touchdowns against West Virginia in week 1 because they had to. West Virginia sold out for the run, and Drew Aller showed out. So those are the 2 guys if you're going to look for Heisman contenders on this Penn State team.
Absolutely. And in terms of who's a guy that nobody's thinking about, you know what I mean? Who's a guy that the nation may not know, the nation may not be thinking about in terms of right now in those, you know, first round draft pick conversations that you say, this guy could be an X factor. This guy, if you're watching the big game, you're watching that Michigan or Ohio State game, this guy could be the guy that make the play that wins us the game. Don't be afraid to say Kobe King. I wouldn't be mad at you. I wouldn't be mad, you know.
So just because there are some guys that just don't get the due respect that are above him right now, because I like Kobe King a lot. Okay, I think he's someone that I've raved about the 3 linebackers that they have on the field all at the same time. So I'll pivot to his linebacker counterpart, and that is Curtis Jacobs. Curtis Jacobs was left off award watch list, and then NFL scouts have quietly said, "Hey, this guy is a top 5 linebacker in next year's NFL draft." So it's like, what are you doing at the college football level when you leave a guy off of award watch list and the NFL scouts are saying, no, this guy's pretty good. We could take him probably early on day 2, maybe on day 1, depending on how the combines go and everything else. But he's had double-digit tackles. Everyone likes to talk about Abdul Carter because he wears 11, flies all over the football field. But Curtis Jacobs has quietly been the linebacker that's really held the glue of the defense to add on top of what they already do with the blitzes and the explosiveness. The veteran coming back, could have went to the NFL draft last year. Now he's going to be a top 5 linebacker prospect for 2024. So that's an unsung hero. As far as offense, I'll go with the tight ends, Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren. They're co-starters. They've been running a lot of 12 personnel, having 2 tight ends on the field at the same time because you can't keep them off. The offense is able to be built with the fact that they can do so much more. So they've been quiet in the passing game because Penn State's needed them to just be a helping hand when it comes to blocking, and that's fine. But Theo Johnson has been talked about as a unicorn because he's 6'6", 260, and the way that he runs is very you just have to see it when you watch the game. Very fast when he does go out there for a pass. And then Tyler Warren, described by CBS Sports as the best secret in college football, so I'll take their word for it.
Absolutely. Well, us media guys know nothing. Drake is 9 toes down about this to tell you we know nothing because he lost a toe saying that Clemson wasn't going to lose to Duke. So,
but I got it back. When Texas beat Alabama.
So
Zach, before we get you out of here, the thesis, the 15-second thesis, if somebody's going to know about this Penn State team and why they should go to the college football playoff, it's always been losses in the big games and maybe one slip in a small game. What makes this Penn State season different?
They're motivated. They're well coached. James Franklin, between Mike Yurcich, Manny Diaz, they finally had continuity, consistency. They were always rotating coordinators. That's the first part of it. The system is in place, and then they have the talent to back it up. You have not just 3 stars and lowly 4 stars. You now have 4 stars and those highly touted 5-star players. So Drew Aller, Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, Abdul Carter, we've named it up and down the roster, Kalen King, Chop Robinson out of the transfer portal. I mean, the talent is there to go along with the system of probably the best coordinator setup that Penn State has had over James Franklin's tenure. Mike Yurcich, Manny Diaz are both head coaches at coordinator spots.
That's Zach Seiko, Locked On Nittany Lions. Zach, thanks for joining Locked On College Football Kickoff.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Kent, one of the biggest storylines we've buried. We have buried the lead. Colorado, Deion Sanders. We're going to get that a couple of times in today's show, but let's jump in right now first. This team, I mean, we were buying them last week. I guess you're still buying them this week after they dominated Nebraska in a game that was personal.
I was the first one to buy stock in Colorado, and it's a hodl, baby. It's a hodl. I'm holding this thing until the wheels fall off. Now, let me tell you this. I think that.
Let me tell you something.
Talk to me.
All right,
talk to me.
It was a vine. You're too old.
Okay. All right. Well, Drake, me and you are about the same age now. Don't do me like that. The bald head is fooling you. But here's the reality. I have a lot of faith in this Colorado team. The under-over that Vegas has on, I believe, is 6.5 at this point. I still think that they have the opportunity to get over that. I'm not necessarily buying them as a playoff team yet, because when your defense looks how they've looked at certain points in time this season, you're living on the edge a little bit. And they have to get better defensively before I can say, hey, I trust this team to be in the playoffs. And also, Travis Hunter and all that he's done, that young man is playing 110, 120 snaps a game. They need to start blowing teams out if they want him to be good and fresh for late in the season. Like, yes, we can say, hey, 110, he still looks good after week 1, going into week 2. What does that look like when you're going into USC? What does that look like when you're you're in the dog days of week 11 and you're saying to yourself, now, wait a minute, what's 110 or 120 times 11 here? You're looking at a very, very different situation when you've got a guy playing over 1,000 snaps where he's either targeted on defense or a guy that's having to go all out on offense. It's tough. It's tough for me to say that, but I do believe that this team is a good team. I do believe that this team can shake some folks up, scare some folks, and all that good stuff. And I'll tell you what, we saw with TCU last year. You don't necessarily need a great defense. You need timely stops. You need to create turnovers, which they have done so far this year. So could they be that type of team? Possibly that type of contender. But, I'm just sad because I know the buzzers are circling. They're waiting for Deion to lose to say, we told you. We told you. So what? That it was to Lincoln Riley and the team that's probably going to go to the playoffs or just short of playoffs. We told you all along that Colorado wasn't about it.
Kenton, obviously, we'll get into this conversation later in the show, but I want to preface it. This whole Jay Norvell thing, I think Jay Norvell is a genius. Because this entire week, we've been talking about one name and one team, Deion Sanders and Colorado.
Yeah.
Kenton, I am the host of Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. And I had no idea who the Colorado State head coach was 3 days ago. Now I do, because Jay Norvell, marketing genius. No publicity is bad publicity. So now if you look up Deion Sanders' name, what name pops up with it?
Jay Norvell.
Jay Norvell.
Yeah.
Colorado State. They've been ESPN and Fox have been in his office asking questions about Colorado all week long to him and his players. He took the attention, brought it to himself. And what did Deion Sanders say? Oh, now it's personal. Deion, it was personal last week and the week before that. And is it just going to be personal every week? Maybe they buy that within the program. But to me, on the outside of the program, it thinks, okay, at some point, this whole personal narrative has to die. Jay Norvell tried to trap Deion into sounding really weird about a really small team, right? If somebody's super inferior to you says something, you usually brush them off. Not Deion. No, this made it personal. Kent, we'll get to that conversation later because I know you got a lot.
All right, I was about to say, hold on now. Hold on, but we go ahead. Go ahead, Drake.
I know you got a lot to say about it.
Yeah.
We got a lot of awesome. We got Conference Confidential coming up. We've also got to go around with Locked On Razorbacks host John Neighbors as well. But first, Conference Confidential, whatever we call that. But first, hey, what do you got for us, Kenton?
All righty. Well, I got some FanDuel for you, folks. I know we're talking college football right now, but trust me, we've also got NFL action. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You heard that right. You turn that $5, flipped it into $300 worth of value potentially. Ain't that crazy? Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. I'm not going to say it's an offer you can't refuse because, we're nice guys here. We don't want you to do nothing you don't want to do. It's just an offer you should get in on, okay? FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
It's an offer you must take, or you have to cut your left pinky toe off with the rest of the night. That's what we're supposed to say, Kenton, but all right, whatever. Conference Confidential. Not a ton of big rivalry games this week. I keep hearing from people, both sides, this is a boring week of college football. You weren't saying that 4 weeks ago when you really wanted football to return, were you? No, you weren't. Exactly. And some teams, though, could be on upset alert this week, while others have opportunities to make a statement. So let's go around the country, get the latest from our Locked On Conference hosts, starting with Craig Sheeman of Locked On Big Ten.
So this weekend, both Big Ten coaches in the state of Michigan are suspended. It's been a crazy time in Big Ten country. Of course, Mel Tucker will not be on the Michigan State sidelines because of accusations of sexual harassment. So on Saturday, assistant Harlan Barnett takes over with an assist from former head coach Mark D'Antonio, who's coming out of retirement for this game against the Washington Huskies, who come in with Heisman hopeful Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. And he used to be the quarterback of the Indiana Hoosiers, so he could be comfortable coming into East Lansing. He's played in this stadium before. This will be the final week of Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh's suspension, the self-imposed 3-game suspension he's been serving out. The Wolverines take on Bowling Green. Offensive coordinator Sharon Moore will handle the head coaching duties. And I heard Michigan's going with the all blues with this one. Blue jerseys, blue pants. Cool look. A couple of quarterback announcements this week, finally. Ryan Day has made it official. He has settled on Kyle McCord as the starting quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Buckeyes host Western Kentucky for their final tune-up before next weekend's game against Notre Dame. And Tom Allen has decided on Taven Jackson as his starting quarterback moving forward for Indiana. The Hoosiers play Louisville. It's not in Bloomington this weekend. It's up in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium, home of the Indianapolis Colts. Saturday does feature one Big Ten versus Big Ten team on the schedule. Undefeated Penn State rolls into Illinois. Expect an orange-out crowd there. I don't know if it's going to compare to Penn State's white-out crowd, which is next week, by the way, against Iowa. But they're going with the all-orange. We'll see how that looks in Champaign. And the most intriguing game on the schedule, I think, might be PJ Fleck's Golden Gophers, Minnesota, hitting the road to take on Mac Brown's North Carolina Tar Heels. The Heels are 8-point favorites in this one, but I think Minnesota's defense is sneaky good. And if North Carolina Heisman candidate Drake May plays anything like he has the past couple of weeks, Minnesota's got a chance. Look, Drake May has not lit it up yet. He threw 2 interceptions in the South Carolina game, and he needed 2 overtimes to beat App State. So I'm saying it's out there to be had. And finally, don't forget, Friday Night Lights again in the Big Ten, 2-0 Maryland hosting Virginia. The Terps have a great running back in Roman Hemby and, of course, quarterback Talia Tagovailoa. So it should be good. Enjoy the games this weekend. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.
What's up, everybody? Candace Cooper here, Locked On ACC, and here are the games that you should check out from my conference. The Backyard Brawl, always a doozy. Phil Dracovic is new to this game, but Pitt Panthers are not. What will he bring as he's had a shaky start to the season? Can he turn things around for this offense? Defense has been holding strong per usual. And West Virginia game is always one where you just never know what you're going to get. So look forward to tuning into that one in West Virginia, that I might add. Let's also talk about the fact that we have another Big Ten opponent. North Carolina and Minnesota, for the first time ever, are going to be playing against each other in Chapel Hill. So that should be a fun doozy. Can North Carolina hold still, bounce back after a shaky App State game? It's going to be one where we see Drake May continually improve. He has had not the best Heisman campaign right now, but there is still so much ball left to go. Final one, I would say, as we're talking through these games, Georgia Tech and Ole Miss. Georgia Tech showing up. Not saying they're going to defeat, but a big show up in a big way after last season getting obliterated by the Rebels. Can the Yellow Jackets show that the improvement is there? Possibly an upset, taking down a top 25 team. It'll be a great one to watch. So make sure you check it out.
Well, this week's slate in the Pac-12 doesn't quite match up to Week 2's non-conference affairs, but still some games that bring a lot of intrigue to our beloved Conference of Champions. Spencer McLaughlin here for Locked On Pac-12. The only Power 5 matchup that anyone's paying attention to in the Pac-12 this week is Washington at Michigan State, which now has external factors at play. And you just wonder, is a team going to play inspired or defeated when an interim coach is inserted? Washington has been really impressive through 2 weeks so far. They stumbled in the first quarter against Boise State, a little in the second. Then they found their footing and they won that game comfortably. Tulsa never had a chance playing in Seattle, but Washington has a chance to go and make a statement on the road at Michigan State. They're a big favorite, and they have become a greater favorite since it was announced that Mel Tucker would not be coaching the game in East Lansing on Saturday. But the Huskies, nevertheless, are playing their first Power 5 opponent of the year. They've taken care of a couple of G5 opponents pretty handily. They haven't struggled in the fourth quarter of either of those games, but on the road, hostile environment against a 2-0 football team, we'll see what Michigan State is able to give them. Last year in Seattle, the Huskies really controlled the game from the early portions of it, and then Michigan State made a late surge, but never truly threatened to get back into the winning side of things against the Huskies. So if they go in and dominate the way that a lot of people expect them to, they will solidify themselves as a conference contender and a college football playoff contender here in 2023. A couple other games to note. Fresno State goes to Tempe. Fascinating game because the Bulldogs out of the Mountain West are favored against Arizona State. They're a 3-point underdog. That might be a candidate for the Pac-12 prime picks this week. ASU playing their third straight game at home, looking to get over 500 once again under first-year head coach Kenny Dillingham. And Arizona comes back home after a great fight against Mississippi State last week to play UTEP. I think they could win that game over the Miners. Really, really big. That's a rundown for the Pac-12 this week. Catch Locked On Pac-12 on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts Monday through Friday all year long.
That was a look around college football here on College Football Kickoff Live with our Conference Confidential. Don't forget, big conferences, the biggest conference, the Big 12, is coming up later on in the show. Kenton Gibbs, it is time for Boom or Bust. Let's take a look at some college football teams that we think have not been as good as advertised and teams that have been better than advertised. We'll start with you, Kenton, your number one boom of college football so far.
Absolutely. I mean, there were a lot of choices here. There were a lot of teams I thought have looked very, very good so far this season. FSU, and I'm not saying this because I'm a co-host of Locked On ACC. Keon Coleman has been dominant. We thought, hey, he's going to be a good 1-2 punch with Johnny Wilson. He said, no, I'm 1 and 2. Everybody else get behind me. He's jumping over guys. I've never seen a receiver in a Power 5 game signal, throw me the fade ball as much as I did with him against LSU. And guess what happened more often than not when he got that fade ball? He was coming down with it. Number 4 is having a parade inside the end zone. Yeah, Skip Bayless would say. So, it was a very, very exciting time for Florida State in week 1. Week 2, of course, everybody expected them to whoop Southern Miss. Now they're going forward with more games of teams that aren't quite on pace with them, but that's not because they have a terrible schedule. It's because they're legitimately that good right now. They're looking amazing.
Kent, we got a little extra time, so we'll go 2 booms and 2 busts apiece. I'll give you my boom, Washington. Michael Penix, why are we not talking about the Huskies and what they've done so far this season? Now, look, let's be honest. The Pac-12 is not something that we were talking about before the year began. Now they have 8 ranked teams. So the Huskies schedule is not going to be easy, but they have taken care of business when they needed to. Now, and what I mean by that is there are so many squads, especially in the SEC, who have just not played anybody yet. We just haven't seen them play a team where you say, all right, here's how they stack up. This Washington squad ended last season with a 7-point win against Texas in a bowl game. They beat Boise State 56-19, beat Tulsa 43-10. The defense is good. The offense is better. This is a team that we are not talking about enough. That is a dangerous, dangerous squad to not only win the Pac-12, but also to go to the college football playoff. And I think similar to Penn State, we're skipping over that. The difference in Washington and Penn State, Washington doesn't have to play Ohio State or Michigan to get the CFP. Yes. They've got to play Cal, Michigan State, Arizona. Of course, they have the USC and Washington on there, but they also have the Stanford on their schedule. I think Washington's got a legitimate shot to go to the CFP, Kenton. They are one of my booms this year. Let's go into busts next. Who is one bust that you've got before we go back to the booms?
Oh, man, I think that there are so many teams that could have fallen into this bust category so far. And I really could go in for days and days on some of the teams that haven't shown up so far this season. But I'm going to call one team to the carpet that I just have not seen anything from this season, with all due respect. Tennessee Volunteers, come on down. The way that Tennessee fans talked about Milroe not being able to pass the ball on these basic routes, the way they talked about him and his inability to read defenses, are you forgetting that Joe Milton ran out of bounds to end the game? Are you forgetting that guy's now your starting quarterback? Hey, listen, I love the nickname. Bazooka Joe is one of the best nicknames in all of sports. R.I.P. Joe Frazier. We love it on Joe Milton. We love the shirts and the NIL and all that. That boy needs to prove to me that he can hit a quick out. That offense needs to prove to me. I watched them play against Virginia, and Virginia, without Chico Bennett, their best defender and potentially best player, held their offense down until literally the last 5 minutes of the second quarter. Folks, I'm telling you right now, I'm worried about this Tennessee team. Everybody thought that Rocky Top was going to be a super tough out because of Joe Milton in this offense and Heupel in this high-powered offense. I don't know how much power that they got in it, but they need some gas power, some nuclear power, some electric, some EV power. They need all types of power because right now they're not looking like it.
My bust, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And we already talked to their host here, Jay Stevens, on the show. What have you done for me? You sucked against Indiana. You were lackluster against Youngstown State at times. Defensively, it was 14-7 coming out of the first quarter against Youngstown State. And if you're Ohio State, that shouldn't happen. This week you get Western Kentucky, and we talk about teams finishing and doing what they're supposed to do. Ohio State's 2-0, but it feels like a fraudulent 2-0. Their quarterback feels handicapped so far. What can you do for him? He struggled so much against Indiana. He is one-dimensional. He can't run the football. McCord, I don't think, is an elite quarterback that can lead Ohio State to a Big Ten championship. You already disappointed last year by getting killed by Michigan in the regular season. We invited you to the college football playoff, and you had Georgia not just on the ropes. You had the game won late, let it slip through your fingers. And a lot of Ohio State fans that agree with me, I don't buy this whole Ryan Day thing. Yeesh. I'm still not all the way sold on Ryan Day until this guy with the most talent in the country, with so much money, with a massive recruiting pool and big brand, until this guy can start winning a championship, until he can win a championship. That's one of those universities, Kenton, and there's only about 5 or 6 of them, that your standard here is to win a national championship. And if you can't do that, a la Mark Richt at Georgia. Georgia wanted a championship. Georgia fans are going, why'd you fire perennial 10-2 Mark Richt? To win a championship. Ryan Day is getting dangerously into that territory. They are one of my busts. Kenton, give me another boom.
Well, I mean, in terms of booms, we got to go to a team that is in the similar vein of that whole Mark Richt and winning the national championship and are they back conversation perennially. The Texas Longhorns, I got to give them their guts. I got to give them their props. I got to give them their respect. They showed up and beat Alabama. Let's just be honest. This was not a game in which Alabama beat themselves. No, Texas showed up. Quinn Ewers is finally looking like the guy that everybody thought he was. I mean, that boy was out there dropping dimes like he was trying to get kicked out of a strip club. He did everything that you need to do out of a starting quarterback in a big game. He did everything that you need to do in terms of not just protecting the ball, because there's 3 different types of quarterback. There's the quarterback you win in spite of. He's playing terribly, but your defense and your running game is good enough to get it done. There's the quarterback you win with. I hand off the ball. I hit things on time. Every now and then I make a good play for you. Don't ask for too much. And then there's the quarterback you win because of. And let me tell you something. Quinn has been the guy that because of you, they feel real safe down there in Austin. I love it. Keep it up. I'm not going to say that Texas is back. However, Texas looked phenomenal. They're one of my boom teams so far this year.
Kenton, my boom, and I think it's a level 18 boom. This is a level, maybe even level 20, which is getting kind of crazy. This is from our production team to you to myself, the Colorado Buffaloes. I mean, this is a team that you very well thought could be 0-2. Many had them at 1, 2, 3 wins. How do you put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole at this point? They were 1-11 last season. They've already doubled that win total. They're 2-0 with wins against TCU and Nebraska. And what I want to hone in on here for a bit is this whole Jay Norvell, Deion Sanders conversation. Because while I think Colorado is a big boom, I've got Jay Norvell as a boom this week. He put himself and his program on the map while all the talk has been about Colorado. What do you make of this?
I strongly disagree with you. He's going to be a footnote. Jay Norvell
in the strongly category. Watch out.
Listen, I agree.
That's a level 18 disagree right there.
I was just about to say, I agree to the level 18 boom. I agree to that. But I think that this is a huge bust for Jay Norvell because, number one, you're not going to be out on that field. Somebody's going to get hit in the kidneys for what you said, brother. That's the reality of what we're looking at here. But even beyond that, I very strongly feel like there are certain things that you can talk about that you can, they're fair game, right? If you say, hey, Shedeur hasn't seen a defense like ours. He's never had to throw in as tight of windows that we're going to make him go against. Hey, Travis Hunter hasn't seen receivers and DBs like ours. We're going to be all over him like a ferret on the first day of hunting season. I love it. I'm all for it. when you talk about how a man was raised, that really is. If you talk, listen, I love my mother. I know she's watching this right now. Mom, I love you. If somebody said Ken don't know how to host because, you know, that's just, I was raised that you never use any type of vernacular English when you're speaking on television. You speak proper standard English. Now you talk about how my mother raised me. Okay, now it is personal. Now it is personal. Now I want to beat your show because it's that personal to me, because now you done disrespected my mother. That is insane. Of all the things that you have to disrespect about them, of all the things you can say, hey, they can be the glitz and glam team. We'll be the team that works hard. We'll be the team that puts our nose to the grindstone. We'll be the team with the calloused and nasty hands. They can have those manicured polished ones. We'll be the ones that have our hands like this so that we can relax at the end of this thing when we're singing our fight song. We're playing Katydids at the doorstep in the end zone. But you don't talk about a man's mama. You don't talk about the way a man was raised. That's just insane. And now you earned your team getting 50 because you made it what? Personal.
He made it personal. Look, he was already going to lose by a lot.
Yeah.
He was already going to lose by a lot. And Deion, what was going to happen was Deion was going to dig up 3 weeks ago. Jay Norvell probably said, I think the biggest game on our schedule is Nevada, because that's the game that matters to them probably. Yeah. And Deion was going to pull that and be like, they don't respect us. They don't give us any love. Like Colorado State's overlooking us. He would take it out of context, bring it to his team, and try to make it personal. He was already going to do that with something small. Jay Norvell said, no, don't dig. I'll just give it to you. We're already going to get it just beat out of us. We're going to get killed. But let's get killed and make headlines for a couple of days. Again, no publicity is bad publicity. Everyone knows the name Jay Norvell now. And the spotlight has been turned for a moment from Deion to Jay Norvell. How does Deion respond? Of course, saying it's personal, which is the same thing he said last week and the week before that. This is like a reoccurring thing for Deion. And Jay Norvell just said, look, if it's personal for you, it can be personal for me. I take my glasses off. I take my hat off when I sit down. That's how my mama raised me. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did not, which like Matt Rule, right? Matt Rule cowered down and, he didn't double down on his words on game week. Jay Norvell said, I'm going to make it very apparent what I think about Colorado. I'm not going to dance around it. You think he's the big bad bully? Look, I can come to the table too with my own disrespect. And to me, that shows some cojones from a guy who already knew he's going to get his rocked.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I'm never going to say that he didn't pull a bold move. That if you're asking if it was bold, that's a level 100 lock. That was extremely bold. Okay, I was Batman the Brave in the bold. For those of you who remember that show. But with that being said, was it smart? Was it advantageous for his team? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Again, this was already going to be a situation where I'm sure the dogs were going to be called off and Travis Hunter was going to be in a hot tub by the middle of the third quarter and whatnot. But to me, again, there are certain things that are inbounds, in play. You can go for it. You could, that's college game day stuff, sign stuff. Like that's not real football stuff. That's not real. Let's talk the on the field going ons and happenings stuff to me. And I'm very much so one of those guys that's like, keep it on the field. Any problem I have, and if I have a problem with you off the field, let it be between me and you as men. Let it be between, don't bring my wife into it. Don't bring my kids into it. Don't bring my mama into it. Those are things to me that when you bring that in there, even if he was just doing his job to sell the fight, right? Because we've all seen this with boxers and UFC fighters. Like, if you talk to the guy, he's the most humble guy in the world and doesn't really like doing that. But he's like, hey, I talked the way I did because I needed to sell the fight. Sure. You don't sell the fight with mama. You don't sell the fight with mama because now we fighting here and in the ring. We gonna fight here first, and then you're gonna get whooped on in the ring. But for him, Deion is an old man. He ain't gonna put hands on you. He just gonna say, hey, Travis, go deep. Hey, Shador, hit Travis behind that 5'8" corner that runs a 4.7. Go ahead. That's what we're going to do.
Well, Jay Norvell asked for it. He's going to get his. Yeah. He was already going to get his. It will now be doubled. And a level 18 lock can be Colorado minus 24 or whatever it is.
Hello.
Deion Sanders is going to make sure, because it's what? What was that P word?
Personal.
It's personal. It's personal for Deion Sanders. And Kenton, if you were to ask Deion Sanders, hey, Deion, what's your LinkedIn profile? What would he think? What word would he use? It starts with a P.
Well, you know what it would be. Personal.
It would
That's
be
what it would be.
personal
That's what
if
it
you
would
asked
be.
Deion Sanders for his LinkedIn handle, but it wouldn't be personal if you asked me or you for ours because we love LinkedIn, right, Kenton?
Absolutely. Folks, I've talked to you about this before, and I'm going to talk to you about it again. As a recruiter, I use LinkedIn Jobs regularly to find folks. And why would you not do it, right? These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for you and your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best and most qualified candidates for your jobs. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. We all love free. Free. That is what we all love, folks. All you have to do is create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs, then add your job and the purple hiring hashtag for hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills that you want to talk to faster. You can prioritize them right away so that you can cut through some riffraff and some unwanted applications. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So, folks, go to LinkedIn Jobs because it helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
We are approaching noon o'clock on the East Coast. That's Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack and Locked On ACC. I'm Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making Locked On College Football Live your lunchtime listen every single Friday. We are live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, talking all things college football, the biggest storylines from last week and the biggest games coming up this week, and the best bets. Because right now it's time for Sell Me Why, where we bring you the wildest lines, the best lines, the lines that you need to know this week, and why X team will cover. The number 14 LSU Tigers travel to Starkville, Mississippi to take on the 2-0 Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Tigers are 9.5-point favorites in that one, 9.5 by the hook. Here's Caroline Fenton of Locked On LSU to sell you why the Tigers are going to cover 9.5.
I'm Caroline Fenton, a host of Locked On LSU, and this is why I think my Tigers will cover the 9.5 on the road at Mississippi State this weekend. First and foremost, I feel like this LSU offense is starting to figure things out. Jaden Daniels throws a career-high 5 touchdown passes against Grambling this past Saturday. Plus, LSU may have just found its go-to workhorse back in Notre Dame transfer Logan Diggs. He had a massive game on Saturday night, rushing for 115 yards on 15 carries and a touchdown, and he looked really good doing it. On the defensive side of the football, Harold Perkins looks like he is back. Against Florida State, Harold Perkins wasn't much of a factor. LSU moved him on the inside. They wanted him to play inside linebacker, but we have seen that Harold Perkins is at his best when he's on the edge. So he played a majority of the snaps on the edge against Grambling, and I expect him to play there against Mississippi State as well. But I'll have a full breakdown of this LSU-Mississippi State matchup on the Locked On LSU podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, on the Locked On Network, your team every day.
Yeah, Kenton, this game to me, LSU lost to Florida State by a lot of points. Take some of the moxie out of what this program has. And people, as they do in college football, are already questioning Brian Kelly because that's what we do now. After 14 games as a head coach, the guy's not ready. He can't handle it. Against a Mississippi State team, granted, it's on the road at 11 a.m. on ESPN. This is the one game that just feels like a snoozer where LSU wins at 24-14. You look back and go, they covered, but I didn't really enjoy watching that.
You know, I'm going to tell you this, okay? The segment is called Sell Me Why, and I want it that way in terms of believing that LSU is going to cover this. I think that this is a fairly easy one. I mean, here's the thing. Mississippi State, they are, they've been through a lot in terms of the loss of Mike Leach and kind of recovering from that and kind of growing from that. And I don't see this as a team that's quite ready. I don't see this as a team that I'm saying, hey, I deeply believe that this Mississippi State team can get a win done here. I just don't. I'm sorry. Say what you want about me. I have seen nothing from Mississippi State to say that this is a really quality team. And with that being said, I want to take it here for a minute. Yes, LSU got tapped out by Florida State. Absolutely. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. But do you know what happens with a lot of teams in college football? And this is something that I stand by. Nobody's going to get me to come up off of. A lot of teams are front runners, and that's what LSU is. They're a front runner. They're a team that when they're up and they get you down a little bit, they're gonna have fun. They're gonna have a party on you. They're gonna do all the things. Can they get up on Will Rogers and this Mississippi State team? Absolutely. Now, the thing is, you have to get to Will Rogers early. You cannot let Harold Perkins be doing this Mike linebacker nonsense. Brother, put your hand in the dirt and go get the QB. That's what you do. That's where you're gonna make your money in the league. So let's stop playing around. You go do your deal, get to Will, and you'll be just fine. But if LSU plays around, then hey, Carolina, I'm sorry, Miss Fenton, but the Bulldogs will look for real.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head here. If LSU brings its family into Starkville and struggles, think about how consequential this game is. Mississippi State loses. All right, sweet, they lost. LSU loses or doesn't cover or looks bad. The sky is falling in Baton Rouge because that's the way things go at LSU. Everything's an overreaction for the better or worse. Kenton, we're not going to stop there with tell me why. Number 11, Tennessee is headed to the Swamp to face LinkedIn Billy. And the Florida Gators, where Tennessee is currently favored by 7.5 points. The same Florida team that got smoked by Utah. Here's Eric Kane of Locked On Vols to tell you why the Vols will cover.
Not only do I think Tennessee breaks a 20-year-long streak of losing in the Swamp in Gainesville in Florida, but I think Tennessee is going to cover the 6.5 over at FanDuel. Tennessee beats Florida by more than 6.5 because, quite frankly, I think Tennessee is a better football team. It's a rivalry game. Emotions are going to be high. I think the Volunteers go down there and score early, take that crowd out of the football game, and it has a nice combination of Joe Milton throwing the football, but also Jalen Wright running the football, averaging over 9 yards a carry so far this season. Tennessee's run game is really good. With the new clock rules, you can kind of ice that game in the second half, and Florida needs to run the football to be successful, but I think Florida's going to be playing from behind, and I don't trust Graham Mertz to win a football game with his right arm. I like Tennessee's roster better. I think Tennessee's got a better collection of players, young guys in the secondary for Florida. I think Tennessee exploits that, and I like the Volunteers to cover the 6.5 point spread down in the Swamp and pick up its first victory over Florida in the Swamp since 2003. A huge win for Tennessee is probably going to happen this weekend, and it's going to set the scene for what's to come later in the year. It's always a big game between Tennessee and Florida, and the Volunteers are going to be a lock to cover that spread.
2003. I wasn't even alive in 2003. That's been a long time since Tennessee won at Florida. What are we doing here? I mean, it's a rivalry night game.
Same age group. I did not know you were born after 2003.
You know, like, what are we going to do here with this game? What do we do, Kenton? I just don't. It's a rivalry game. Do you buy 7.5?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He sold me, and I'm buying it. Let me tell you why. That Florida team, you know, y'all not calling them LinkedIn Billy for no reason. One of our producers is Brandon Olson from Locked On Florida and Locked On Gators rather. And let me tell you something. If he is okay with us calling LinkedIn Billy, then I think that there's some things going on down there that are just a little bit problematic. With that being said, while I don't have a ton of faith in Tennessee's offense to get it going right away, I also don't have any faith in Florida's defense. I don't have faith in Florida's offense either. At least with Tennessee, I look at their defense and I say, hey, those boys can get it done. They can absolutely get it done defensively, which is surprising when you think about how people talk about Josh Heupel in that offense. But the reality is, I'm looking at Tennessee and I'm saying they break that 20-year streak. And, you know, we also get Drake his legal license to drink at some point in time here as well, since apparently he wasn't alive in 2003. But the reality is, I think that both of those things get done today. I think that Tennessee takes care of this game. I don't think Florida has many horses in the stable to handle what Tennessee's bringing this year.
Sell me why first. In this segment, FanDuel has the South Carolina Gamecocks at 27.5 point underdogs. Let's take it to the dogs. Back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs and South Carolina. Here's Andrew Lyon of Locked On Gamecocks to sell us why you should take South Carolina.
The spread for South Carolina's Week 3 matchup against the number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs has been set at plus 27.5 points by FanDuel Sportsbook. So can the Gamecocks actually cover that spread? In my humble opinion, they absolutely can. Since the start of the 2021 football season, the Georgia Bulldogs have been listed as home favorites by the odds makers on 14 separate occasions. But Kirby Smart's squad has only covered the spread in 5 of those ball games. One of the times that they did not cover the spread was against Shane Beamer's Gamecocks back in the 2021 season. Considering all the talent and depth that Shane Beamer has accumulated in Columbia since that matchup and the inexperience and injury question marks that Georgia possesses right now, the Gamecocks, in my opinion, are a shoo-in to cover that spread in Athens this Saturday.
Yeah, Kenton, you taking the Gamecocks here?
Absolutely not. My brother in Christ, they couldn't run the ball on Furman.
Yeah.
They could not run the ball on Furman. I'm sorry. You cannot convince me. We talked about this earlier with our friend from Locked On Penn State. The big boys win you and lose you games. South Carolina's big boys stink. They're awful. They're terrible, with all due respect. They're on scholarship. These are Division I athletes and all that. Relative to other Division I athletes, relative to other Power 5 athletes, their big guys are not it. They're not it. It's just not a situation that I'm going to believe in them to do anything. I don't believe that they can find a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of offensively against the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm sorry. I just don't think that that's going to be the case. I think that Georgia is safe. They are comfortable. They're going to be, as Beyonce would put it, cozy in their skin in this game.
Wow. You're telling me that South Carolina couldn't run on that Peloton behind you. Is that what I'm hearing right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm telling you right now, this Peloton will probably have about 3 or 4 TFLs against that South Carolina team. The camera's inverted. I don't know why I put up my wrong hand there, but you get the point. That offensive line, I mean, that to say that they're Swiss cheese is not, that's not it. That is an understatement.
Ken, my John Neighbors tracker is beeping. How about we talk sell me why with Arkansas minus 8.5?
Let's do it.
John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks joining us here. John, Arkansas and BYU, the Hogs, after a big win over the Cougars last year in Provo, now host that same team, but without Rocket Sanders. Sell me why Arkansas minus 8.5.
Well, I believe because his name is KJ Jefferson. And as long as you have KJ Jefferson, I mean, anything's possible with that guy because he can run it, he can throw it, he can truck you, he can do so many different things. And it's really going to be about his game and really the season. This team is going to go as KJ Jefferson goes. When he has KJ Jefferson type games, they're going to win. And I believe he's going to win this, have a great game in this one. And I think Arkansas is going to win this game.
You know, I just want to ask this. We talked about this in terms of knowing the guys who are not as national household names in the past on this show. I want you to help me out. Who are the guys that we're going to see all over the place in this game that maybe the nation isn't used to and some of our viewers wouldn't know about?
I always love Isaac Tesla, not Tesla, but he is a wide receiver transfer that a lot of players or a lot of teams were after. And he's a possession guy. He's an athletic freak. He's not going to beat you with his insane speed, but he's just a great athlete. And I've seen a lot of great wide receivers come through Arkansas, of course, most notably Traylon Burks here recently. And I don't think I've ever seen, though, a wide receiver like Tesla who catches everything that's thrown to him. I mean, it doesn't matter how low it is to the ground. It doesn't matter how outside it is. It doesn't matter where it's going to be. He's going to find a way to catch it if it's in his vicinity. So I think that we've seen a little bit of him so far this year. He had some big catches against Kent State, and I think you're going to see a lot more from him in this game, and he's going to start turning into one of, if not the favorite target for KJ Jefferson this year.
John, as a Bologna, Arkansas native myself, I grew up going to Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium when Houston Nutt was the coach, and the packed house and night games and Darren McFadden. This one's a 6:30 kick on the hill. What does the atmosphere have to do with Arkansas covering 8.5?
I mean, it's going to be huge because anytime that you have a night game in the SEC, it's always exciting. And also when you haven't started to suck yet and people are still hopeful for the season, you're going to have a great atmosphere no matter what. I don't know if it's going to break any records, but there's going to be 75,000 plus people there. The weather is about as perfect as you can ask because I'm actually here in Fayetteville, and the high tomorrow is 78 degrees and sunny. And so, I mean, it's just a perfect fall weather type of football atmosphere. a lot of tailgating. People still hopeful, a little reserved right now about the Razorbacks, but still hopeful that this is going to be a great year. So I think they're going to bring it from the very get-go, which is important for Arkansas because last year they were not good at starting off strong. They always got behind the 8 ball. Done a pretty good job so far this season. Let's see if they can actually get off to a strong start and be able to feed off of that crowd, because the last thing you want to do is have that great atmosphere and then you end up down 14-0 in the first quarter, and it's really hard to get them back.
So let me ask you this, John. Does Keaton Slovis end this passing game from BYU? You know what I mean? Keaton Slovis is, in the words of Johnny Cash, he's been everywhere, man. He's been all over the country playing football. Is this a guy that you look at and are like, I'm a little concerned about him making this defense look a little more pliable than they've looked so far this year?
I think so. I'll absolutely, because you think Arkansas had the worst in FBS pass defense last year, not just exaggeration like that. They were actually dead last in the FBS and pass defense last year. And they've done a lot of things to fix it. They brought in a lot of great players in the transfer portal, a couple guys from Baylor transfer, James Singletary from Georgia, former 5-star player. They've brought him in. He's been really good. Dwight McLaughlin going to be back. He's been dealing with the turf toe injury a little bit last year, but he's going to be good to go. So they really have upped their game there. And this is what's going to be fascinating about this, because both teams have struggled to run the ball this year, which is so crazy to think Arkansas struggled. And they're not going to have Rocket Sanders, as was mentioned. Yeah. But I believe the defensive secondary has improved so much than what we saw last year to where they're going to make them earn it. And the defensive line is going to put some pressure on it. And dare I say that the Arkansas defense this year looks so far and away better than what it was last year. It may actually be a strength in this game. So you're not going to see the 52-35 final score like we saw last year. I actually believe it's going to be a lot lower scoring for both teams, but I think that Arkansas secondary and their defense is really going to make BYU and Slovis work for everything that they got.
That's John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks podcast. John, thanks for joining. Tell me why.
No problem at all, guys. Hogs by 90.
There. That was Sell Me Why. Kenton Gibbs. I feel sold on a couple of these. South Carolina, you feel very sold on. Arkansas, -8.5. Seems like a snoozer to me, like a 24-17. That's kind of what John sold me on here. It's like a 24. So I don't know, 90 feels a little much. But I'm sold on a few of these at least, and I will be certainly using those at FanDuel.com. Speaking of FanDuel.com, Kenton.
Absolutely. Folks, we're talking about college football, and obviously we want you to, make some money there too, but get ready for the NFL season with some incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who have bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the prime time to join the FanDuel movement. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you will not want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
Kenton, we heard earlier from our hosts of Locked On Big Ten, Locked On ACC, Locked On Pac-12, all that we can expect from those conferences this Saturday. Let's go around the country again to get the rest of the conference picture, starting with, to be honest with you, Kenton, I don't know if I've said this, not publicly at least, but I will never forget the last words that my grandfather said before he kicked the bucket. Hey, how far do you think I can kick this bucket? Oh, get it. I am so excited for the Big 12 this week because the rest of college football seems pretty darn boring, but not us. Not the Big 12, home of the Colorado Buffalo and the Texas Longhorns to beat Alabama, #1 Kansas State and Missouri. What do I expect to happen in Columbia at 11 a.m. on the SEC Network? Boy, this is one of those that you don't really watch because it's on the SEC Network. You're kind of in your car, you're driving somewhere, but you look at the score updates, and then you think at halftime, ooh, 21-3 Kansas State. That's not good for the SEC. It is not going to be good for the SEC. Final score, somewhere in that 35-17 range. Kansas State is going to win this game by as many points as they want to. They are 5-point favorites, and they absolutely beat Missouri this week. Some other interesting matchups. Did you know Iowa State's a 3-point favorite against Ohio, over under 42.5? I love the under here. 3-point favorites against Ohio. Iowa State on the road. I hope they win that one. The really big, one of the really big spreads that I am shocked by, South Alabama playing at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State just 7-point favorites. Why are there so many weird lines this week? Oklahoma State will not beat South Alabama by 7. They'll win by 3. Some good, sneaky good matchups here. Cincinnati, Miami, Ohio. Cincinnati only a 14-point favorite after winning at Pitt last week. This is at Nippert Stadium. What a name for a stadium. Cincinnati, minus 14. I don't know why I'm giving you bets here, by the way, of these matchups that I'm breaking down. I love Emory Jones, the quarterback for Cincinnati, is great. Some of the bigger games as well. Arkansas hosts BYU. This was a shootout last year that BYU ultimately lost. I think BYU probably loses again this week as well, but we're not going to be able to tell much about the Cougars. Are they good? I don't know. They lost to an SEC team on the road. Are they bad? I don't know. They lost to an SEC team on the road. Or they beat them. I don't know. West Virginia beats Pittsburgh at home. I love WVU in this pick, despite them still not being a bowl team to me this season. Houston hosts TCU. TCU only 7.5-point favorites. TCU blows them out. In Kansas, the night game, Big 12 after dark, beats Nevada by more than 28 points. That's the spread. That's the Big 12 this week. It's a fun week. A lot of quirky, fun matchups. Texas hosting Wyoming as well is kind of weird. I don't know. I'm excited for it. That's the Big 12 this week.
3 big conference games in the SEC this weekend. We start with number 14, LSU at 2-0 Mississippi State. Surprised. LSU opened at a 9.5-point favorite according to FanDuel. I thought it'd be closer to 5 or 6. LSU leads the SEC at 540 yards of offense per game, but State running back Woody Marks, he leads the SEC in rushing through 2 weeks. LSU has won 20 of 23 matchups. I like LSU to win, but State to cover. Also, it's 1-1 South Carolina at number 1 Georgia. Gamecocks around a 4-touchdown underdog. Spencer Rattler completing 83% of his passes this year. He's been solid. Yes, he was sacked 9 times in the opener against UNC, but Georgia, only 1 sack through 2 games played so far, and that was Tennessee Martin and Ball State. If the Gamecocks can keep Rattler upright, I think they cover that massive point spread, but I think the talent of Georgia wins down the stretch. Georgia on a 19-game win streak, that expands to 20. Lastly, the SEC game of the week, it's number 11 Tennessee at 1-1 Florida. The Gators, only a 6-point home underdog. Danger spot for Tennessee. Joe Milton has not set the world on fire through his first 2 weeks since taking over for Hendon Hooker last year. The Vols have dropped 9 in a row at Ben Hill Griffin. 20 years since the Vols have won in the Swamp. Both teams expected to get their starting centers back. That should help Tennessee's tempo and Florida's run blocking. I think this one is close. If you're looking for a bet, why not take Florida on the money line? Straight up upset. Why not? Would be a massive win for Billy Napier and crew. For more, check me out on Locked On SEC.
Dave Schultz with your Week 3 Sun Belt preview. More Power 5 matchups for the Sun Belt. You have some sneaky ball games. The Power 5 teams may be on upset alert. Georgia Southern heading to Madison to take on Wisconsin. Old Dominion actually hosting Wake Forest. They snapped, Old Dominion did, snapping their 7-game losing streak last week to the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. They are hosting the Demon Deacons. And South Alabama is heading to Oklahoma State. If the Jaguars can ever figure out what they're doing on the football field, they'd have a shot against the Cowboys, who have a 3-man quarterback rotation. Bad news for the Jaguars, though. Devin Boyson not playing this week, and I think his season is in jeopardy moving forward. We're waiting to hear official word. You also have some good Group of 5 matchups. You do have App State hosting East Carolina, and you do have Southern Miss taking on Tulane in Hattiesburg. Last year, Southern Miss did beat the Green Wave in New Orleans. But the big matchup is actually a Sun Belt Conference ball game. You do have Troy hosting JMU. These 2 teams were the best 2 teams in the conference last year, and they didn't get a chance to play because of the ridiculous rule when you move up from FCS to FBS. Troy, the champion overall, and the Western Division winner, and JMU, the Eastern Division champ. So this could be a preview of this year's Sun Belt Championship ball game. The problem is Troy is allowing 36 points a ball game, and JMU is averaging 37 points a ball game. So Troy is going to have to figure out something to do defensively to slow down those Dukes, who are coming off of a win against Virginia. That is your Sun Belt preview for Week 3. Enjoy the football, everybody.
Kenton Gibbs, a look around college football there. We've done both of our conference confidentials. I mean, last week it was Alabama and Texas. Yeah. This week it's maybe Tennessee can sneak up on Florida in the Swamp. Is anything really getting your attention here? Because it does seem like I don't want to say a down week, but it's certainly not as entertaining of a week as it was last week.
I'm going to tell you this. Whenever we hear the words down week about college football, sit down and watch college football. Let me tell you, you're going to see a bunch of exciting games this week that are much closer than they're supposed to be. You're going to look up all of a sudden, wait a minute. What happened? I thought this Oklahoma State, South Alabama game was supposed to be boring, dry, nobody doing anything special. Next thing you know, you're watching a very quality football game with two teams competing to the end here. Again, just 4 weeks ago, we were begging, crying, and throwing up. Please, we're tired of watching the Little League World Series. Give us some football. With all due respect to the little fellas playing in the Little League World Series,
it's a hell of a show, man.
It is. It's great. It ain't football, okay? It ain't football. We know that that's king in America. Then there's tons of good games this week, even out of conference. We can still evaluate what conferences are against each other based upon this week. You look at a team like North Carolina going up to Minnesota, and you say, well, hey, that could be a game where you're looking at and saying, all right, how good is the Big Ten? How good is the ACC? This is a game to kind of help sort that type of deal out. And again, the SEC has looked very underwhelming this year. Will they continue to look underwhelming? Will Arkansas piss down their leg against BYU? We don't have answers to a lot of things that will be seen this week. So trust me, tune in, sit down, watch some football. How personal are the Buffs going to take it? How personal? There is plenty of good football in front of us. Just watch it. Just watch it, okay?
Yeah, I am. I look around the assorted conferences, and it's tough to name which one has the best slate. There are a few of them getting into conference play, like the Big 12 has TCU at Houston. Oh, a lot of folks will be glued to that one at TDECU, or I don't even know how to pronounce it. Whatever stadium that is in Houston. Going over to the SEC, you're Alabama. How do you bounce back on the road against South Florida at Raymond James Stadium? Tennessee and Florida doesn't have the luster that it usually does because Florida's going to fire their coach. Kentucky plays Akron in a night game, so they get to host a night game in Lexington. When you look at the ACC, though, that's a conference I don't know if we've talked about enough here. I know we heard it in Conference Confidential the first time around, and you already mentioned North Carolina. Is there anything that you're glued to, even tonight, Virginia and Maryland? I think it's an interesting matchup because of how well Virginia played down the stretch against James Madison. Anything you circle in the ACC that you really like?
Yeah, I would say that Virginia-Maryland game is definitely going to be interesting because Virginia is fighting for their life to get a win this year. Like
at any point in time.
At any point in time against anybody, because James Madison was supposed to be a win, but then everybody looked at it and Vegas said, no, wait a minute. Virginia runs the ball better than they throw it around the yard. And James Madison is one of the best run defenses in the country. They've got to find a win somewhere. If Tony Elliott ain't to go 0-12, they've got to find one. They've got to do some digging and searching and hoping and wishing to get themselves one here. So I think that game could for sure be good. But I think that I go back to that Minnesota and UNC game as a game that you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot because people feel like the App State game App State kind of caught UNC off guard, despite the fact that App State put up 40 in the fourth quarter to kind of make that a game last year and take it into overtime and whatnot. Or actually not taking it in overtime, come just a extra point short of taking it in overtime rather. People still think that UNC overlooked that team. You're not overlooking Minnesota. That's not happening, with all due respect. That may not be a powerhouse Minnesota, right? Like that's not the case. But with that being said, this is still a team this is a Power 5 team. You're on the road. Show some respect. Show up ready to play, or else you'll get ran up out of
there. Yeah. Kenton, it is time for one of my favorite segments, and it is the new LinkedIn updated profiles for many head coaches across college football. Tell us a bit about the old LinkedIn thing.
Absolutely. Listen, athletic directors, I know that some of y'all are going to be looking for new head coaches after this season. I've seen it already, but we're talking about small businesses right now. And these days, every potential new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Trust me, all you have to do is go and post that free job on LinkedIn Jobs, then add your job in the purple hiring hashtag frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and abilities and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to talk to. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you to find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Hey, Kenton, is my Wi-Fi coming through okay? Can you see me all right?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, because it looks like I keep getting these up. Every time I get a notification, my Wi-Fi kind of just flickers in and out. And I keep getting these LinkedIn requests from Jimbo Fisher. He really wants to be friends. Looks like he's got this whole thing freshened up. I think Jimbo Fisher might be looking for a new job.
Yeah, well, Jimbo ain't the only one. Jimbo's looking for a new job, but he ain't the only one. Billy Napier is also a couple weeks away from looking for a new job. But we'll leave Billy alone because he's new. He's new in the game. So we'll give Billy some grace. Jeff Hafley, that red bandana game, I think that they should take a book out of Penn State's page and make it the whiteout games. That way they can wave the white flag and send Jeff on his way respectfully. And I'm going to call you Jeffrey. Jeff, can I call you Jeffrey? I'm going to call you Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I know it's been a long time coming, and I'm going to tell you this. It's looking like Ohio State may need a new staff up there soon. And I know you're an Ohio State guy. Jeff. You know what I mean? Just pick up the phone, baby. You know what I mean? Call him. Give it. Hey, Ryan, listen, your new defensive coordinator, I heard you want that old thing back. I'll be there, brother. If you need me, I'll be there because, both of those are tough situations. But I'll tell you what, Boston College just barely scraping by the skin of their teeth against Holy Cross. It's going to be an unholy firing, brother. It's going to be an unholy job search in terms of, this market is tough. I'm a career coach too, Jeff. So if you, again, Mr. Hafley, actually, not because I'm asking for some money now. Mr. Hafley, if you want to, have a career consultation, I can tell you other things you can get into to make yourself a little money, bro.
Jefferson Hafley. Notable listener to Locked On College Football Live is probably very upset right now because he is going to be fired. I don't know what happened to Dono, man. I think Dono gave himself a 1-week self-imposed ban because of how excited he got from the Miami win. He pulled he saw this week's slate of college football and pulled the Jim Harbaugh for us. So I think since we have a third spot available, what do you say we reach out to Butch Jones? We could have had him help us host this show this week. He has scored 3 points, Kenton, 3 points in 2 weeks for Arkansas State. What once was a great program, no matter who coached it. I wonder if Butch Jones has a job waiting for him here at Locked On.
Hey, listen, Butch, we don't have anything for Arkansas State, brother. We don't have anything for Arkansas State. Come on. You know what I mean? You know more about the ins and outs of that program. I got a few sources at NC State. I got a few sources around the ACC. I know you got more sources than me in that Arkansas State program, bro. Go on. Come on. You know what I mean? I'll hop on the phone with Mr. Lock and Company, and we'll get you. We'll get you squared away, brother. We'll get you a mic set up. We'll tell you the best headphones to use and all that. You know what I mean? I know you're a little older, so we'll set you up with a good producer, and we'll help you out there. But I don't think he's going to be a head coach too much longer. I knew back in his Tennessee days when he tried to make one of the best running backs in the nation a tight end that wasn't going to work out very long. And so, with all due respect, Arkansas State's athletic director, LinkedIn Jobs. If you need to post a job for free. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Purple hashtag hiring frame. It is right there for you. It is right there for you. Kenton, there are the ones who legitimately have LinkedIn profiles. Jimbo Fisher, Butch Jones, Jeff Hafley as well. Neil Brown at West Virginia. His days are numbered. Billy Napier has been an absolute joke at Florida. I mean, Phil, look, I can win as a head coach. If anybody can win as a head, you can recruit, you get 4 or 5-star players, and Billy Napier has somehow found a way to mess it up. Dave Aranda, his LinkedIn profile has been updated at Baylor, now 0-2 after a loss to Texas State and Utah. But one person, I'm hearing the murmurs, Kenton, that Brent Venables has downloaded the LinkedIn Jobs app. After a disappointing win this past weekend, against SMU, the whole Art Briles being on the field, then Jeff Labby making his profile picture Art Briles to directly go against Venables and Joe Castiglione, the athletic director. People are wondering what's going on with Brent Venables, who brought Oklahoma to a sub-500 season last year.
So here's the thing. Brent Venables maybe should have taken a page out of Bud Foster's book. Bud Foster is widely respected as one of, if not the greatest defensive coordinator in all of college football history. You know why? He found where his home was. He found where he was comfortable. He stayed there forever. He literally is still just hanging around in Blacksburg now. He was with the I want to say ACC Network crew last week when they were doing their little tailgate segment for Virginia Tech. And mind you, he wasn't there as a pundit. He was there drinking. That man said, I'm going to be drunk with an O by the time this game starts. More power to you, brother. But with that being said, Brent, head coaching ain't for everybody. Everybody ain't able. You know what I mean? You gave it the old college try. You gave it the attempt. You don't got to update your LinkedIn, Brent. You know why? Because in the words of Seventh Heaven, where can you go when the world don't treat you right? The answer is home. And that's the one place that you'll find Dabo Swinney. You need to go on back. They need you over there. They need you over there, brother. You going back to Clemson. Go on back, okay? Because you don't have to – all these other coaches, they got to find somewhere to be. Brent, go ahead. Go home. Stop playing. You done messed around long enough now. You know, and Dabo Swinney, you ought to be standing outside of his house in Oklahoma playing Baby Come Back outside the boombox. I mean, going full Cusack on him, okay? So, you know, that's just my opinion there. Now, that one you are too young to understand.
Yes, I am. You're correct. What I love is one writer wrote, if they don't have a mess on the field at Oklahoma, they will create a mess off the field, with Art Briles being in Norman. Venables' era at OU is right now, he's 2-0, following last season's sub-500 season. They've got Tulsa, which should be a win on the road. But you never know with Venables so far. He's been hit or miss, certainly. And this is an Oklahoma team that's they are truly in a prove-it year, because when you go sub-500 at NC State or Baylor in your first year, they're like, oh, yeah, sure. There's a progression. Yeah. There are levels to this. Oklahoma, no, sir. They don't play that game at OU. So Brent Venables, I don't know if your days are truly numbered here, but he's at least downloaded that LinkedIn app, and we're going to keep a pulse on that the rest of the season, because somebody has got to lead them into the SEC. And I'm hearing murmurs from Oklahoma fans that they're not exactly confident that he's going to be that guy that can get them there in the future. Now, Kenton, there are some huge storylines in college football that we could get. I mean, there's so many that we haven't gotten to yet. So what do you say we blitz all the way through them? It's that time where we hear from our lead dog, the MVP, the czar of Locked On and Locked On Auburn host, Zach Blackerby, for the Blackerby Blitz. It is Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn. The Blackerby Blitz this week. We go through the nation's biggest headlines in college football, and Zach reacts. Zach, Deion Sanders, notable douchebag to some, savior of college football to others. He took shots this week. When Jay Norvell said, when I meet a man, I take my hat off, my glasses off, and I shake his hand. Deion didn't like that. Zach, where do you sit?
Yeah, he riled up his folks, and he said, they made it personal. They made it personal. Why is Colorado State wanting to do this? It makes no sense at all. I mean, I think Colorado's got the talent advantage, and now they've got the reason to play. I mean, maybe Colorado State could have snuck up on them. Maybe. That's not happening now. I think this is a bad move, and Deion gets to keep playing the same song over and over again. People keep counting us out. People don't believe in us, and he's able to turn that onto his team and say, hey, these people doubt you, and now you can go and show them. I don't know why people keep giving him ammo, Drake. It doesn't make sense.
Every week, Deion says the same thing. They don't respect us. They doubt us. And guess what? He was going to do it with Colorado State. Now Colorado State gave him a reason to, because they know they're going to lose. Mm-hmm. And now, what are we talking about today, Zach? Not Deion Sanders, but Jay Norvell and Deion. I didn't know who coached at Colorado State 3 days ago.
Sure.
And now I do, because Jay Norvell is alongside Deion Sanders in the headline. Look, College Game Day wasn't here for Jay Norvell. Neither is Fox Sports. But now there's a storyline that includes the Colorado State head coach. No publicity is bad. Hey, we were going to get killed anyway, but now they're talking about us.
I don't know, man. I think it's such a boneheaded move. I don't know if it is a good thing for Colorado State.
Well, they like Jay. I know Jay Norvell's name now, so if anything comes out of it, Jay Norvell made the show.
Wow. Never thought we'd talk about him on the Blackerby Blitz.
I didn't either. But you know what? One guy that I didn't think we'd be talking about in the hot seat. I mean, they're trying to fire Nick Saban now. He done lost to Texas at home. Zach, has Saban lost that little touch?
Not to circle back to Deion so quickly, but the amount of like message board posts, like, we got to go get Deion.
Yeah,
and all these Tuscaloosa message boards, like, holy cow, what a wild world that we live in. I don't think Nick Saban's done, but Drake, you can't look at how Nick Saban talked to the media after that loss and tell me that it looks like it always has. Something seems different. Something seems off. I don't know if Nick Saban's just getting older and maybe he's tired, or maybe he knows this team isn't as good as they typically are, and he knows he doesn't have a championship team. I'm not sure, but something does seem different. Seems off.
Which is a damn shame for the Auburn fans of the world. And you too, Zach. I'm sorry.
Well, Drake, I just got to tell you, the Iron Bowl is in Auburn this year. And weird things happen when that game is played in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Yes. Speaking of weird things, how about relations via a telephone for one Power 5 head coach who just signed a 10-year contract? Mel Tucker and Michigan State likely completely parting ways after he had inappropriate, unwarranted relations with a sexual assault survivor and advocate via his cellular device. What do we do with this?
You fire him, which is what Michigan State is going to do. And look, obviously the folks impacted, like, hopefully everybody's okay and recovers and all of that. But Michigan State trying to fire him for cause, and Drake, I mean, you and I aren't attorneys, right? You may kind of look like one, but I think this is interesting because Michigan State looks like they're going to be able to fire him for cause. And in this world of college football that has contracts that are just having this massive buyout structures. I cover Auburn. I know better than anyone. I'm curious to see if they pull this off because it may kind of set some precedent for coach firings in the future.
Yeah, what's interesting is Michigan State was probably looking for a way out of that 10-year Mel Tucker. Look, if it's a 3 to 5 year deal, maybe you leave him around for a bit. They're looking for a way out. Mel Tucker said, hey, look no further. I'm going to do a really bad thing. And he lied about it. So probably did it.
Not a good
Now,
yep.
Zach, speaking of legal issues and lawyers, the Pac-12 is being sued. Washington State and Oregon State want complete voting rights in that conference. And I think it's a valiant pull.
Yeah, the two-team conference, they should have 50-50 splits, right? I think that's how my math works. Yeah. I still just don't fully understand what they're doing. And to me, it seems like with these two teams that are left, Drake, it kind of just seems like they're mad. And they're like, well, you can't shut down unless you let us sue you. It's just a weird thing because I don't really know how this conference survives. And there's been talk about maybe they merge with the Mountain West or something like that. Who knows? Really unfortunate for those two programs. But to me, this just feels like, okay, we're upset. We've got to do something. Hey, Pac-12, we hate you.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna file a lawsuit, likely win the lawsuit, and at least have voting rights over where the rest of the assets of the conference go, which could end in a pretty big payday for those two schools.
Maybe.
Weird consolation prize to go to the Mountain West. Zach, Quinn Ewers will win the Heisman now. Is Texas really back following a win against Alabama?
I think Texas is back. I think Texas is the real deal. And look, you know this better than me. Outside of Texas and maybe Kansas State, the Big 12 isn't good. And I don't think Texas loses again until they play in the college football playoff, Drake. I think their toughest hurdle is now behind them, and they have to have all the confidence in the world.
At 12:45 Central Time on Saturday, Sunday morning, I turned my TV off thinking the Cal Golden Bears had closed out a 10-7 win at home over the Auburn Tigers, only to figure out what a thrilling 14-10 finish. It's our one Auburn question every week, so I don't get fired. Zach, the Auburn Tigers got it done in a thriller.
Yeah, a little ACC after dark visiting Cal. What a disastrous performance, but hey, they found a way. Apparently, all these Pac-12 folks have since reached out to Auburn people and said, yeah, that's what Pac-12 After Dark is. It's weird stuff. And I'm like, no wonder you don't exist as a conference anymore because that was not fun to watch.
No. Very good to go to sleep to, and happy for my wallet, and thanks to FanDuel, that Auburn did win the game. That's Zach Blackerby Blitz. Top headlines in college football this week. That was Zach Blackerby, the Blackerby Blitz. That's Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack and Locked On ACC. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. Kenton, word on the street is FanDuel.
Absolutely. Folks, let's talk about FanDuel. Again, I know that it's a huge Saturday in terms of some of these matchups, and you want to get yourself some money that way by going to FanDuel. But let's also talk about some of the games tomorrow. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Wherever you are, you can watch your team now. You know what I mean? For a very discounted rate. If you just spend $5 on FanDuel. Now is the best time to join the FanDuel app. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So make sure that you're visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer that you absolutely have to get in on. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Ken, before we go into the lock of the week this week from our friends at Locked On Bets, I do want to go back to something that we haven't mentioned a lot, and it's that word back, Texas. We've talked a lot about Alabama and the fall of the Crimson Tide. We haven't put a lot of conversation on Xavier Worthy and AD and Quinn Ewers and that whole Texas offense that was churning in Tuscaloosa. Do you think the Longhorns are BACK?
Zach Blackerby hurt my feelings in the Blackerby Blitz. No, Texas is not back. If you put the proper reverence onto what Texas has been historically, again, this is the fact that I will continue to go back to until somebody gives me a reason it should not matter. From the year 2000 through 2009, over basically the course of an entire decade, even if we added in 2000 and 2010, 2 seasons where they didn't win 10 games, they had as many national championship appearances, darn near, as they had seasons with single-digit wins. Until you sustain the success, you're not back. You're not a one-off team. LSU, with all due respect, national champions, they got plenty of them. That's a one-off team to where they can win. They can go in and say, hey, we had a season where we won a national championship, but then we had a couple of down years. But, we're in that time, we were still kind of good, 9-10 wins. We're good. And, therefore, they're back. Sure, Texas cannot claim that. Texas cannot claim back until we see sustained success. Mac Brown era success type of ball game. Until we get that, until we get a transition from a Vince Young Heisman winner to a Colt McCoy, we don't have that. Texas is back. Now, I know everybody believes in Arch Manning. Everybody believes in everyone with the Manning last name. That's why people are talking about Eli as if he's a Hall of Famer. But the fact of the matter is simple. Until they've proven this on a sustained level, no, the Horns are not back. Are they a wonderful team? Could they take it all this year? Absolutely. Are they back? No.
Yeah. I do want to point to the rotating door of head coaches they've had. The lackluster record that Steve Sarkisian still has at Texas, winning a Sugar Bowl and following it up with mediocrity, and mediocrity might be a nice word for a Texas team that has such high expectations. This is a program where the culture itself has been one so toxic that from program to program across the board here, especially the big ones, the moneymakers, there seems to be some sort of disconnect, especially when it matters the most late in the year. We're always, Texas basketball, Texas women's basketball, or here they come in baseball or softball. And at the very end, when the moment's the biggest, the culture at Texas right now is to choke. Someone out there is punching their car right now. They're punching the dash.
Yeah.
But the culture at Texas, when the lights are the brightest in the biggest games, in the postseason, in the ones that get you there, Texas loses. You can have all you want in the regular season. You can have all you want in the first few weeks, and I'll give it to you. This is better than usual. Usually Texas starts the season with a big loss in their non-conference. You remember BYU and Notre Dame. Yep. They struggled LSU in those non-conference games. You finally got that non-con win. But what have you done for me in men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball, football, volleyball? Fine, we'll leave them in their separate category. They've been good. But everybody else, there's a culture of getting right to the doorstep and choking.
And let me say this as well. To the Texas fan that's punching your dashboard, pull your hand back and ice that thing afterwards. You're probably not going to feel good. But even beyond that, let's have a real conversation. Do you realize what a credit this is to your university? It's a credit that we're saying this is potentially a national championship winning team, and they're not back yet. That is the standard that you all have set. Be excited about that. Be happy about that and live in that. Live in that. Remember when you were having terrible seasons and your only national relevance was about, is Texas no longer a blue blood? Well, look at you now. You're a team that is in the talks. You have a Heisman competing quarterback. You have a national championship caliber team, according to most pundits. And yet we're arguing about whether or not you're back. So I know some people are upset to hear me say, oh, they're not back. They're not back. Take pride in that, because most other teams, you've done enough for them to have won this season. I graduated from NC State. If you beat Bama and you're seen as one of the best teams in the nation, and you have a Heisman candidate quarterback at NC State, congratulations. They're going to build you a stadium. They're going to name the stadium after you. They're going to give you a statue out in front of the Wolves. That's what the deal is. Texas, the standard is higher. And if you want me to be so excited that I'm screaming this team is back, then say, hey, we want our standard lower. We want to be just like everybody else. We don't want to be different. And by the way, it's too late for that, because the folks who created the Longhorn Network were the first domino in this long fall of Washington State suing the Pac-12. Congratulations. So with that being said, that ship has sailed. You are who you are. And folks have the standard that they have for you if they respect you and if they believe in you. And I respect Texas too much to say 3 games they're back. That's just me. That's just me.
The domino effect, Kenton. The domino effect. Longhorn Network leads to Washington State suing the Pac-12. Me having a peanut butter granola bar for breakfast last week, had I had oatmeal, maybe the Pac-12 doesn't get sued. It really makes you think in the realm of college football, the cause and effect that Texas has had on the rest of this sport. Now, cause and effect. Maybe the cause of locked on bets being so poor on this show is us. The effect being 0-2 in their first 2 bets. They are literally called locked on bets, literally to place bets that win us money. 0-2. This is the Locked On College Football Live curse. Can we make it 0-3? Let's see if we can do that with a huge FanDuel point spread, Georgia and South Carolina. We heard from Locked On Gamecocks earlier. God, please don't pick South Carolina. How they can cover the spread.
Let's do it.
Oh, Kenton, what does Lee Sterling and your boy Q think from Locked On Bets?
What the WTF?
All right, here we go. Let's get things started. WTF, that stands for the wrong team favorite. We're talking about number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs going up against South Carolina. Georgia comes in at 2-0, South Carolina 1-1. FanDuel.com line on this one. Georgia minus 27 versus South Carolina. That's a lot of points, Lee. Break this one down for us.
Yeah, the Bulldogs just totally last year rattled Spencer Rattler, South Carolina quarterback, in that 48-7 win. But he did progress late in the season. They beat number 5 Tennessee at the time, 63-28. Are you kidding me? Put up 63 points. Then they beat, at the time, number 8 Clemson, 31-30. Even in the bowl game, when they lost to number 21 Notre Dame, they put up 38 points in that 45-38 loss here. So South Carolina's capable. I mean, is their offensive line great? No. Is their defensive line run defense great? No. They lost to North Carolina, but you're buying low now. If they beat North Carolina, this line is probably 20, 21 points here. Georgia's ranked number 1 in the country, but are they that much better than everyone else? I don't think so. They got a new quarterback. I think they're down a few notches. They might still be the best team in the country, but 4 touchdowns, that means they got to outscore South Carolina by a touchdown every single quarter or more. South Carolina, and they can score a couple touchdowns. Trust me, they have weapons at receiver. They have a good quarterback. I think that they're going to cover here. So The Dogs have been pedestrian running the football so far this year against Ball State and Tennessee Martin, and that's South Carolina's weakness here. I'm not going to put my whole leg in. I'm not even going to put up my whole foot in. Maybe one or two toes. Georgia, 42-21, South Carolina covers.
Boom, there it is right there. South Carolina covers. Again, 27 points is a whole lot of points, and we know how it is, man. Once you get up big, sometimes kind of take the foot off the gas a little bit as well, get some early action for some younger guys. And so, yeah, that's a lot of points right there. So we're rolling with Georgia to get the dub. There's no doubt about that. South Carolina covers, so that's a WTF, the wrong team favored.
They did it again. They did it again. I don't know what to do, Kenton. I don't know what to do. There's 60% I'm hearing on bets this season, but everything they bring to us dies. Hold on a second. We're having this whole conversation about how it's physically impossible for Georgia to cover 27 after they won 48, and mentioning in the same video that they won 48-7 last season. That's 41 points, Kenton. 41 points.
Against the South Carolina team that was better than this one.
It was ranked. They were actually ranked that time.
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say this to all Locked On hosts. And normally I only talk to our listeners. But for a second, I got to talk to all our Locked On hosts. Stop betting your toes on things. They're going to call us the Gimpy Podcast
They
Network
stole
here.
my toes thing, didn't they?
But they stole the toe bit. They stole the toe bit. And I'm all toe up about it. This is a terrible situation. I don't think y'all understand, okay? Normally,
and last year's game was at South Carolina.
Yeah. And normally I joke around and say, hey, even I could get a sack against this team. I am not joking when I say this. If me and Drake were to run a tackle and stunt, I have no doubt that Drake could get home against this offensive line. I have no doubt about that.
Yes.
I have no. Now, could he get down Spencer Rattler? That's a different question. But could he get home? Could he make him uncomfortable? Yes. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This offensive line is god awful. I have not seen a group of men be riddled with this many areas of weakness in quite some time. I mean, this is just this offensive line, they can't hold water. This is just not it. And you're going to tell me that you have this team going up against the best defensive line that they've gone up against all year, and they're going to find a way to cover against Georgia? Stop playing. Don't bet your toes. Find something better to do. Find something better to bet. And also, stop playing with these people Locked On Bets, okay? We want to make people money here. Okay?
You bring us the good bets.
Bring us the good one.
You bring us the good bets.
Who's the producer picking these? We got to talk about this in post-production. Y'all got to bring us something better. Y'all got to bring us something back. This is crazy. I don't care if it's a level 1, level 2, level 3 lock. There's a reason we got level 18 locks on this show.
Oh, Ken, I think all the bets that we gave hit last week. Locked On Bets 0-2 on this show. Maybe it's us.
Hello.
Maybe it's us. So look at all this. There are other games in college football that they didn't choose and probably should have chosen. Mm-hmm. Kenton, when I look around the country, I see a Cincinnati team that just went on the road against Pitt and won on the road against Pitt and Pat Narduzzi. They're going to beat Miami of Ohio by as many points as they want to. They are 13.5 point favorites right now at FanDuel. Cincinnati at home. Kansas State on the road -4 against Missouri. 99% of the public is on it, and I am too. TCU -7.5 against Houston. Kansas, who's been so good now all of a sudden, -28 against maybe the worst team in college football, period, in Nevada. They give Arkansas State a run for its money. I am shocked by the amount of, just in my conference, games that are so easy to win money off of. Kenton, when you survey the land, what are your best bets?
I mean, there's a few good ones, but as I'll always say, I'm going to go with Dono. Do not take 40-plus point spreads. Mm-hmm. Always take, if you see a 40-plus point spread game, look for the halftime spread, and that's where you should be safe at. I mean, the reality is, looking around the country right now, again, I see so many games that could be talked about easily in terms of like, hey, this is one that is, it's as American as apple pie to take this free money. And I'll tell you, one of the games that you mentioned in particular, I don't see a world where Cincinnati only wins that game by 13 points was the line, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Miami of Ohio is in over their heads. Scott Satterfield, I don't know what happened to him, but he left Louisville and got a facelift. He said, listen, I don't know about y'all, but it's something about that state of Kentucky that's depressing me. I freeze up in the state of Kentucky like Mitch McConnell. I'm good now. I'm gone, baby. I'm out of there. I'm going to be great. And so the reality is, I think that team heading into the Big 12 now looks like a Power 5 team and whoops the wheels off of Miami, Ohio. I think that's an easy Ducats game. Easy.
Miami of Ohio beat UMass by 13. So, I guess there's some saving grace there. They lost to Miami 38-3. This is a Cincinnati team that beat Eastern Kentucky 66-13 and then beat Pitt on the road. Emory Jones is a good quarterback now. He was supposed to suck. Scott Satterfield was kind of supposed to suck, and he has not. So I really like the Cincinnati pick. Looking elsewhere around college football, one of the ones that I circled when it comes to just insane spread. Locked on bets, guys. Take notes on this one. Western Michigan plus 28 against Iowa. Iowa might not score 28 points because they don't want to. Western Michigan could score 0 points and still cover 28 against Iowa in Kinnick Stadium.
I look at Iowa's transfer QB from Michigan. It's not McCarthy. It's the other guy. What's his name?
McNamara. Cade
McNamara. See, all these Cades. Cade Fordham, Cade Cunningham. I lost my Cade there. But anyway, McNamara he's a baller. He's looked really good for Iowa so far. And I'm going to tell you what. I'll tell you what. If that offensive coordinator's last
baller
name
my ass, Kenton. 314 yards passing in 2 games, an interception and 2 touchdowns. Boo.
Hear me out. A baller for Iowa quarterback standards. You got to understand.
Yes.
If they're
Heisman
offensive
winner. That's true.
By Iowa standards, they're going to build the boy a statue. But with that being said, if Ferentz wasn't that offensive coordinator's last name, he would have been right here on this LinkedIn segment. Hey, anybody need an offensive quality control assistant? With that being said, I 1,000% agree with you. It's a struggle for Iowa to put up 28-plus points. And you think that they have a 28-point spread against anybody? I don't care if you're talking Missouri State. I'm not giving Iowa 28-point spreads over anybody. It's just not happening. I don't care if you're talking Cass Tech High School. You know what I mean? Back when I played there, of course. These new boys, I don't know about them. But I don't see Iowa beating anybody by 28 points. It's just not happening.
No, I don't either. And Kenton, before we get out of here, I want to give our super dogs this week the outright victories that will shock college football in week 3. I'm going to give you a second for yours because I have perused the landscape of college game. I don't think Colorado State's going to pull a massive upset. I don't think Wyoming shocks Texas the week after the Longhorns beat up on Alabama at Alabama. But I do think, Kenton, and call me crazy, it's a tough week to pick an upset this week. I've got 2 of them, 2 contenders here, and one of them is going to happen. I'm going to guarantee one of them at least, and I'm maybe I'll find out when I explain them. Mississippi State covers 9.5 against LSU, and they might just win outright because I think Brian Kelly, some of the honeymoon stuff is worn off now, and that LSU team, there is no way they are bought in to play for Brian Kelly. Just the stuff that he has put out in front of the media, how much of just an idiot he looks 90% of the time he's in front of a camera or a microphone. There's no way an 18-year-old kid's like, oh yeah, I'm vibing with this guy. And I also think that Tennessee at Florida is such a trap for a Tennessee team that has not met expectations, and a Florida team that's playing at night at home. It'll be ugly and gross, and ugly and gross favors the home team. Give me Tennessee losing to Florida in Gainesville to a very inferior Florida team and saving Billy Napier for at least a little bit, and give me Mississippi State outright upset over LSU. Super dogs.
It's tough for me to come up with a true super dog in terms of like a big point spread going against the team and nobody had given them a chance. But I will give you this one, okay? For all the hell that we've given the SEC all episode and talking about, hey, this team's got no chance, this team can't compete, yada, yada, so on and so forth. I'm sorry to tell you, Deuce Vaughn meant a lot more to Kansas State than most people.
Canton, watch out. Don't go where I think you're going.
I think Deuce Vaughn meant more to that team than many people thought. And I think that in an old Big 12 matchup, give me that old-time religion, I think Missouri finds a way. To pull off the upset here. I think it's time that, you know what I mean? That's my biggest upset of the week.
I think Eli Drinkwitz and Brian Kelly should coach together at like a junior high football team. Just life lessons.
I love Eli Drinkwitz. I think that he's a phenomenal coach. I really and truly do. Everywhere that he's been has been better when he left than when he got there. With that being said, I think that Missouri may have been biting off a little bit more than he could chew, but I think that he can chew Kansas State, lean Kansas State quail just fine. I think he'll get this one done.
Boom. Eli Drinkwitz, the Alma, Arkansas product. That's Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack and Locked On ACC. Yo soy Drake Toll of Locked On Dose Grande. Thank you for making Locked On College Football Kickoff Live your lunchtime listen every single Friday. Come back next week where we break down those massive upsets, the biggest storylines, and Kenton's going to ride his Peloton. This has been, and always will be, Locked On College Football Kickoff Live.